Very good to look at the moon in children and babies. Remember, the moon sign is all about nurturing. Mars line, try to avoid, because a lot of times that's conflict. It can tell you where you're more open-minded or not and that type of thing, but nothing can take the place of your free will.
Are you ready to explore the unseen? From the depths of the soul to the vastness of the cosmos, we're diving into the extraordinary. Mediumship, astrology, spirituality, the paranormal, and more. Welcome to your bridge to the other side. Now join us as we unravel the mysteries of the universe, one question at a time, with your host, Kat Walker.
Today we're going to speak with Brenda Smith again, who is a renowned astrologer. She has over 40 years of training. She's my personal astrologer. And so she has been breaking down for us how to interpret our charts a little bit. I know personally, she would tell me what things meant, but I didn't really understand a lot of the things that she was discussing. So she's educating me as well as you all. If this is your first time watching Brenda, you might want to go back to the previous two podcasts that she's on. And maybe take notes. I know I'm going to go back and listen and take notes so I can understand myself, because this is valuable information for understanding your chart and wondering why your life isn't like everybody else who is a Pisces or whatever. So the last podcast, we were discussing the rundown of the planets, what all the planets mean. And so now we're going to come into something that I find probably a lot more confusing. And I don't know if you can also go into what degrees mean.
That's more advanced.
Mm-hmm.
People who are born in the very first part of the sign has a more of a pure nature to the energy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Degrees they get really esoteric at times.
Okay.
For basic astrology.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they don't work, because they do.
Yeah. But we're trying to just get down the ABCs of astrology right now.
Right.
Try and take in that. And by the way, Brenda also does take on students. So if you're interested, she can help you as well, even if you're not.
I love teaching classes because it is fun.
Yeah. But so she can even do Zoom and things like that too, or online. So if you're not in the area, she is a valuable resource for you anyway. But so we were going to talk about things like conjunctions, sextiles, square, trine, and oppositions, which I admit these things I'm baffled by them. So why don't we start with conjunctions?
Okay, well, conjunctions are when two planets are very close to each other. There's usually an 8-degree orb, and it's like, say, in your case, Venus is in Aries and your moon is in Aries, and they're 1 degree apart. They're close. So basically what that means is that the energies meld with one another. So what you need and what you like, there's a huge social proponent with your chart, okay? So and also the moon, Venus can exude a lot of ability to handle people, to be very charming, and to there's a big social element so that you can bring people together.
Okay. So when planets are close to each other, they
take on each other's energy.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Now, what I will say, the planets move and the stars move all the time. There are certain people, when you do their charts, they'll have a lot of squares, or they'll have trines, or they have conjunctions. It depends on how the sky is at the time.
Right.
But conjunction energy is that there's not, I don't want to say awareness, but they just normally just project that energy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And since we
Very
talked about,
focused, very focused is what I should say.
okay. Since we talked about the planets, we can put that
Right.
together when we're looking at our charts if we find out something is conjunct something else. Yeah. Okay. What about sextile?
Okay, sextiles are 60 degrees. Conjunctions are 0 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Sextiles are 60 degrees. That is a very productive aspect, which means that you could act upon the planets on each other to really achieve a favorable result. But you got to work it. Okay, say somebody has Mars sextile Saturn. Well, they can apply their energy, their assertive energy, very practically and achieve some positive results. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, taking responsibility and their self-assertion are can work very well together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, let's
Now
talk.
that's an ease aspect.
That's a what aspect?
Ease. In other words, it flows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you have to take advantage of a sextile. Okay. I'm going to skip and go to trines. Trines are 120 degrees. That is
Okay.
where the energy flows very easily within the individual.
Give me an
So,
example of what that
yes,
like.
I have a grand trine in water. I have Sun conjunct Jupiter. Okay, Sun, trine Jupiter, Uranus conjunction, and then trining Saturn. So even though I'm a metaphysical person, I do represent or I do have some common sense. And no matter what happens to me in life, it seems like I always land on my feet. And I think a lot of that is the Pisces, and it's also the grand trine in water, intuitively helping me out. Now we're going to go back to the squares. The squares are 90 degrees. Those are tension aspects. Okay. When you see squares in the chart, there's friction and there's rubbing. But here's the thing. You don't make progress in life if you have all trines and sextiles in your chart because things are too easy for you. So the people who have more difficult charts are the ones who are going to be more self-actualized because they have to do something about it. Now, it can cause a certain amount of problems in life or a certain amount of irritations, but by working through it, you overcome it.
Okay.
So you should be grateful for your squares and your tough aspects. And
Other opportunities.
yes, and right.
Now I have a
Make
square in
you
my
into who
chart.
you are.
Pardon me?
They do make you into who you are.
I have a square in my chart, do I not, with Uranus or?
Yes, you have Venus square Uranus and Moon square Uranus, which means you're impulsive. It means that you like to do things, you like the excitement, you like the adventure, you like to just go for it. Whereas sometimes it may work and sometimes it may
backfire.
Backfire, that's right.
Yeah, that's been my life.
What I will say, the most positive sense of that square is that you're not afraid to try things.
True. So there can be positiveness. With,
yeah, squares can be positive.
Okay. You just got to learn from what's going on. Like maybe don't move to Wyoming again.
Well, you know, your chart, your astro-cartography chart was not well suited for that place.
And that was maybe we'll talk about that at the end, what you're talking about.
Yes.
Being able to look at a geography to see if you're going to be suited to that place, which I found that fascinating because I did not know that before. Maybe if I'd had you look at it before I moved there, things would have been different. But
well, no, you'd have done it anyway.
Pardon me?
People do what they want anyway.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would have, knowing me, and that there was some romance involved in that. So, we've we talked about trine?
Yeah, we talked about how they flow.
Okay.
Here's an
How
interesting
about opposition?
I want to say something about the trines.
Oh, okay.
Yes, things flow very easily, but you have to act upon them because they'll just sit there if you don't act upon them. The sextile is more of a productive aspect. Okay. Years ago, one of my astrologers, this is back when I'm in my 20s, He said he knew a guy who had all trines and sextiles in his charts, didn't have one single stress aspect whatsoever, and he never had a bad day. But he also didn't have any ambition. So you need to be grateful for those tension aspects because they get you moving. You know, they get you out in the world. They get you into self-actualizing yourself once again.
Mhm.
Okay. Oppositions are not as friction oriented as squares. Squares act upon each other. Oppositions will sit there, but one can set the other one off because it's case in point, I have Mars in Taurus in the first house, opposing my moon in Scorpio in the seventh.
Mhm.
I'm pretty cool most of the time. However, if I feel like there's an injustice because that's Mars moon, I mean, they will get me off kilter. I mean, I can really be very straightforward and direct and get pretty mad, you know? So in other words, they can sit there, but you have to, one has to be triggered for the other one to be set off.
I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, you mentioned something a little bit ago about when I had moved to Wyoming. And then after I moved there, you looked at, now what is that called?
That's called astro-cartography.
And so that was so interesting. And it might be something that people would be interested in if they're considering a move or something. Explain that a little bit.
You run, there is a program that you run the chart for your exact time of birth, and then you will have lines through the country or the world or wherever you want to move and all that. And then the orb stays about 300 miles either way, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a Venus line, things work out pretty well for you. Jupiter line, it is there's opportunity. Saturn is not negative. It could mean that you could have a lot of career advancement, that type of thing, but there would be some responsibility involved. Mars line, try to avoid because a lot of times that's conflict.
Is that what I had?
No, you had Uranus where things just were unpredictable all the time.
And that was very unpredictable.
And so forth and so on. I am not an expert on astro-cartography, but I do know some basics about it.
But it might be something for people who are contemplating a big
move. You could look it up and say, well, this is going through, this line's going through right here, so.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating because now it goes by your birth chart. Is that correct?
Yeah, your birth time.
Chart and impose it on that geography?
Yes. It goes by your birth chart, and there are lines, and it will show up. The lines will show up to where the planetary energies are through the country or the world or wherever you want to go.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. Well, we're heading towards the end of this basics of learning about astrology. Is there anything else you think is important for people to know who are looking to understand themselves or their partners or their children? I know a lot of people get their children's charts done.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say about children's charts. Yeah, it's good to have your kids' charts done, but what I will tell you is that children are very much like their moon signs up until the age of 7. And the reason for the age of 7 is when they start developing conscious awareness. They're more into the subconscious. So it's very good to look at the moon in children and babies. And
that's so interesting.
Yes. And you can look to see where their sun is, the house, and you can look at their chart, but that stuff will all be emerging later. But the moon sign, and remember, the moon sign is all about nurturing and caring and security and that type of thing. So it's interesting to see children, their moon sign will show up more.
Yeah, that is really super interesting. And that makes sense.
Now, Piper has a Virgo moon.
I know. That's why I'm saying it makes sense.
Was she a picky child?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It makes perfect sense. Things had to be just so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that makes sense because that's my only child. And that was my experience with her. What else do you think is important for people to know as a person who's just beginning to learn about astrology?
I would say understand your sun sign where it falls, the aspects to the sun, your moon sign where it falls, my sun sign and house
Now, when
system.
you're talking about where it falls, it's into what house it falls
Yeah,
in.
like my moon is a Scorpio in the seventh house. Okay. You look at in the chart, you look at where the most tension is because that's where you're going to put a lot of focus on.
Mhm.
Okay. And basically, you will also see where the space ruler of the chart is, and that will show the energy of the person of how they're going to approach life. I have a Mars space ruler. I have always taken action all my life. So it's like I just get out there and I just do it. So, there's many, many different factors that are simple that can be explained.
Okay. Well, if
But
you're
understand your purpose in life because everything has to be generated back into the sun. Because if
Mhm.
you're not doing your sun, things aren't going to work for you.
Okay. Um, I guess what I want to say is the things that I have found out about my chart have given me a little bit of a blueprint of uh, things I need to temper,
Right.
things I need to build on,
Oh, yeah.
and to not look at, because I have that whole Uranus thing, not to look at what could be catastrophic as a catastrophe, but as, you know, avenues for growth and a rebirth, which that has been my life a lot. That's why I've had like 27 guardian angels. You know, so it's, I think that it's really important to, as a person who trying to achieve spirituality, for me to look at my chart as, okay, so this is what I came for in this lifetime. And so now why am I being given this placement? How do I become better because of it or nurture the positive aspects of it? And the same thing with partners, trying to understand where they come from, their perspective. Because I'll tell you, as a therapist, we often think people think everybody thinks the same way they do, and that is not at all correct. People think completely different. Like you'll go, "Gosh, I can't imagine why somebody would do something like that." It's because they're working with a different mind and a different consciousness.
Right.
And so I think that astrology has helped me understand that in people, partners or people I'm around, to understand what their perspectives are, why they are
Yes. I
different,
think one
and
of the
that they're
most
not
beautiful.
thinking the same way I do.
Yes. What I really feel like one of the most beautiful things about astrology is it allows you to punch their ticket. In other words, give them a pass,
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And not be so judgmental
Right.
because, and that's a hard thing not to judge. That's one of the hardest things for us not to judge people, but to understand where they're coming from. And sometimes, as a therapist, people have more primitive defense mechanisms, and they're coming from a more fight or flight responses, and this is why, and so they're striking out in different ways. So I find that astrology is very valuable. That, in fact, a lot of times when I would do therapy with people, I would at least like to find out what their big three were, because that would help me a little bit understand in therapy, and also help them understand that other people don't think necessarily the way they do. And so things that people take personally are not necessarily personal because the person's not thinking the same way. Does that make sense?
Sure. And I want to say one more thing. There are certain things that astrology cannot tell you. It's not going to tell you the socioeconomic status in which you were born. It will
Mm-hmm.
show you your ability to be ambitious and earn money or to reinvent yourself, that type of thing. It's not going to tell you your sexual preference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to necessarily tell you your political views. It can tell you where you're more open-minded or not, and that type of thing. But nothing can take the place of your free will. This is a
Yeah.
uh, tuning fork for the soul, is what I call it.
Oh, I love that. Tuning fork for the soul. That's kind of profound for me.
Yes. And
Um,
also, all of us, like I said, have free will.
Yes, we do. And that makes a big difference. I feel like that people don't, I'll hear people say, well, I have a Virgo moon, so that's just the way I am. Instead of, okay, I have a Virgo moon, so how can I temper this? How can I be less judgmental or less picky or whatever it is?
I'm only laughing.
Having a daughter with a Virgo moon, she's probably going to kill me. Maybe she didn't know she had a Virgo moon until just now.
I have a Scorpio moon. I've grappled with holding grudges all my life.
I know. And these are things that,
yes.
Trying to understand and overcome. And I do think, too, when we do understand somebody else's chart, then we also have an understanding of why something is not so personal.
That's right.
Why something is, that can take away the grudge or that aspect of us really holding something against somebody, so, I got that Aries moon. So there's a lot of things there I've really worked on overcoming.
Oh, so, yeah. I've worked on overcoming a lot with my Scorpio moon. So,
yeah, we do. And it's the beauty of astrology, too, is for our soul evolution, which I think is why we're here, is to evolve spiritually. And so this is why I think that astrology is so important from a spiritual and actually a psychological standpoint, coming up from a therapeutic standpoint, how a person can really learn to understand themselves psychologically and understand, say, their partners. Because I think you and I had a discussion once. Sometimes we can't, and I would say this is true, even as a therapist, I can kind of help guide people to not fall for certain types of people that would be toxic to them. But sometimes we can't really control who we get that attraction to.
It's part of
we
your
have
karma.
that partner that could be difficult or not matching. Understanding their chart could make it work much better. Because sometimes opposites do attract and can be the yin and the yang, especially when you can understand. So anyway, so those are some of the reasons I think that astrology is so important. And I know it's helped me a great deal in my life and understanding myself and others. So Brenda, thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. I have gotten a wealth of information on this. All the things I've been wanting to know for a really long time. And I'm hoping that others will get this too. And if you missed the first 2 podcasts, take a pen and pencil or paper and learn a little bit more about it. I think it will help you. And Brenda, again, how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, my website is Brenda G. Smith, BrendaG Smith.com. And then there's a link that you can email me a message. But the best way to get a hold of me is through text. And that is 816-986-7494. And I am in Kansas City. So.
And I also wanted to mention that Brenda is also an excellent psychic, and she's excellent with tarot. And tarot is very strongly linked with astrology. Am I not correct?
Yes, there's a heavy astrological basis in tarot.
So finding a tarot reader who understands astrology is a big benefit as well. So this wraps up this series on astrology. Hopefully we'll get to more advanced aspects at a later date. But I hope you all learned as much as I did from this. And we will see you again, and not next week, but the week after. And have a blessed day, and we will see you soon. Namaste.
Yeah, namaste. Thank you, Kat.
We hope you found this episode of Your Bridge to the Other Side enlightening and insightful. Kat Walker appreciates you spending time with her, and as a token of her appreciation, she is offering a unique opportunity to 10 of the first 50 subscribers, a free 15-minute reading with Kat Walker. To enter, you must subscribe to our podcast. Next, email the date you subscribed, your full name, phone number, city and state, and your question. Send that to yourbridgetotheotherside@gmail.com. Again, That email address is yourbridgetotheotherside@gmail.com. This offer is limited to the first 50 subscribers and is only available to residents of the United States. You must be at least 18 years of age to enter. Don't miss out. Winners will be selected randomly and notified via email. To learn more about Kat Walker and her mediumship services, visit her website at katwalkermedium.com. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the fascinating world of mediumship, astrology, psychic abilities, spirituality, numerology, and more on Your Bridge to the Other Side.